How to play Thresh Top without feeding. I'm somewhat of an expert on this. Playing Thresh Top? No, feeding. Which, for the sake of this video, still helps. What I hope to tell you with this video is a basic idea of what this Thresh Top build can and wants to do, how it can get there, plenty of examples of it in play, and finally, rating how good it is on a scale of freelo to maybe leaving it for ARAMs. Slight spoiler, it's top Thresh, rather than a specific set of items, meaning at very least you'll be playing in Summoner's Rift, since there is no Twisted Tree line. Unlike Support Thresh, who is all in on Thresh's extremely powerful utility, Thresh Top tries to assimilate that tanky bruiser top laner build and mindset, but not entirely through scaling golden items. You see, Thresh does actually have wonderful scaling, but not through farming gold for 30 minutes, instead, he's farming souls. Unlike something like Nasa's Q stacks, which purely add damage, Thresh's souls are more mixed, adding 1 armor, 1 ability power, and 1.5 on-hit magic damage, as well as 2 shield health on your lantern per soul. I go into more detail on those souls in a few other videos on the channel, but all you need to know for this is that Thresh Top's power is closely related to how many souls you're able to gather. You're not a support roaming away from your crying ADC for half a game, you are laning, you are farming, you are split pushing, you are harvesting souls like the law correct Chain Warden Giga Chad you are. The typical build aims to use these souls through a few ways. Mostly, AD Thresh Top is interested in the +1 armor per soul, and very interested in the 1.5 on-hit magic damage per soul. While there are many ways to use and abuse these stackable stats, we only have so many item slots and only so many we can consistently get every game. And also, long-time viewers might be wondering why the fabled Thresh Top guide I'm finally making is so short, but don't worry, the big guide's still cooking. While it is tempting to go for high damage items like Static Shiv, which, don't get me wrong, can still be very good in builds with other goals in mind, can be too squishy and pricey for a top Thresh, making it a very risky route to go. Since Thresh only has 450 range and is, without items, pretty squishy, a nice tanky item first, preferably with wave clear, tends to do well. 2 fun options are Titanic Hydra and Stridebreaker. Great for wave clear or catching or kiting. However, I think one of the best and safest items in every game is actually Hollow Radiance. Yes, even against AD lane opponents. A lot of AD champions still have some amount of magic damage, and even if they don't, chances are other team members do. And as a ranged champion, Thresh has atrocious magic resistance scaling per level, so if you don't want to blow up against the first mage you see, some MR is a great idea. Additionally, unlike its armoured counterpart, Hollow Radiance has a great wave clear passive when you kill a minion, and wave clear is another weakness of Thresh. When you use E to wave clear, its long cooldown leaves you very vulnerable with no way to peel yourself or escape from an engage anymore. That said, if an enemy team is full AD and primarily physical damage, I can see the case for regular old Sunfire. If you went Hollow Radiance, getting some damage next is a great idea, and the best overall item is definitely Terminus. Its hybrid penetration and resistance stats help immensely with both tanking and anti-tanking, with its attack speed and on hit providing a decent damage boost as well. Since you're getting damage from souls, scaling it with penetration assists your DPS greatly, with less compromise on durability than other options. Speaking of other options, there is a higher damage alternative if enemies aren't stacking much resistance, and that's Ginso's Rageblade. This one does the greatest damage for sure, especially in the late game with high soul counts, and has a wonderful build path allowing for both AD and AP bursts in its components when built early enough. You can stack both Rageblade and Terminus together, but if you're too squishy, your 450 range will mean your ultra high DPS is only going to last half a second before you're ultra stunned and ultra killed. And that's where our third or second item comes in Jak'Sho the Protein. With hybrid resistance and health, plus a percentage increase to your armor and MR, this has excellent synergy with Thresh's infinite soul armor, plus boosts the armor and magic res you're getting from Terminus once you have both of them. This item combination creates a massive power spike, allowing you to face tank most opponents in duels and even in teamfight situations, surviving in close enough proximity to lay waste to those caught in the maw of your crowd control abilities. Additional items can be situational, including boots. Steel plates and mercury treads will most likely be purchased around whole team comps rather than lane opponents, but certain matchups can be difficult enough to prompt tailoring your early game build around them. Tryndamere, for example, is the kind of opponent where steel plates is definitely worth it. Boots of Swiftness are fantastic both generally and against enemies that like slows, including Stridebreaker, to try and win duels against you. Thornmail is your choice Grievous Wounds, and early Bramble Vest cuts off important healing on lane matchups like Fiora. and tech choices like Randuin's Omen against crit champions, Force of Nature against multiple hits of magic damage, and Kainic Rukun against large payloads of AP burst can work brilliantly too. Filling out with damage items like Ginsu's Rageblade, Runan's Hurricane, or a late game Nash's 2 for Riftmaker for Omnivamp can be tempting, but you'd better have a main tank elsewhere in your team. Now with the build and goal of farming souls before teamfighting a bit like a Nasus in mind, it's time to discuss how we actually get there. For this, you'll be playing the early game as any standard Thresh Top would. You do know how to play standard Thresh Top, right? Oh. Right. Your main goal is survival, since, like someone like Kayle or Nasus, your main power comes later, especially with this scaling focus build. While Thresh's range is enough to bully some matchups, it's also so short that you're constantly dancing with death against champions like Darius and Set, who can grab you from that range too. Get any last hits and souls the opponent allows you to, and throw your lantern for souls you can't risk getting close to. Stay calm against most opponents, and don't panic wasting your Flay. You should avoid wave clearing with Flay as well, as it's your only defense against opponents with gap closers like Jax and Set. Putting it on cooldown for anything other than defense is often an invitation to scrap at melee range. Not ideal. That said, if you have the advantage, you can aggressively flay enemies towards yourself, especially with runes like Press the Attack, to do impressive early game damage. But make sure you have the minion advantage, a nearby tower, or a nearby jungler before risking it all. If you get nothing else about playing the early game of Thresh Top, then know this. Your main goal is staying alive, getting gold, and getting souls while protecting your tower. Thresh's CC around the tower is a deadly thing that most opponents do not want to mess with. You can always try and hook someone under the tower, and there's a good number of creative ways you can do that, some of which I've mentioned on another video. But as an example, you can see Fiora's marked this side of me with her passive. So I bet if I stand kinda close to the tower, I can bait her in, predict, and land a hook. You know what? Good riposte. Great moves. Now, what if I do this? Yeah, now what's up? You're done! The souls are everything. Losing lane hard with Thresh is so much worse than with other champions, as the time spent not farming souls is not just lost damage potential like with Nasus, but you're also literally being denied armor, which you can imagine doesn't go down well when your opposing AD laner is snowballing off your deaths. The mid game can be dicey. You sometimes will want to prioritize joining fights and objectives with teleport, but other times you just want to keep farming. Like most champions, it'll most likely come down to how worth it the fight is. If this next dragon leads to your team achieving feats of strength, teleporting can absolutely be worth it. But if this fight on the map is already looking grim and your lane opponent is already there, maybe a back ping while you keep farming golden souls is good enough. If you play Nasus and other scaling top laners, you're probably quite familiar with this kind of decision making. The downside is that, unlike Nasus, Thresh isn't exactly a tower-taking god with Sheen. He hates Sheen, actually, so the split pushing is far more self-centered, focused on getting farm and souls. Here, you can see that, even with Demolish, it is a slog trying to take a turret down with pure on-hit damage rather than AD or AP, since they don't take on-hit damage. Late game is when you have that build combination of your first tanky wave clear item, Terminus, and Jackshow. Ideally with about 100 souls before 25 minutes, which is quite achievable if you know what you're doing. It's not going to be absolute cinema with full AD one-shots like you might be used to seeing in fun clips and montages, but you'll likely do more damage in your average games with this tankier build simply due to applying your damage per second for much longer and much more freely. You can choose to dive enemy backlines, but with only a hook and maybe flash or ghost to engage with, this is not always suitable. Peeling your own carries with amazing utility and DPS can work a lot better. Thresh is a support champion after all. Even if this is a right-click auto-attacker build, learning to hit hooks well will massively increase your ability to zoom around fights and get enemies into your range, and then keep them there with Flay and the box. If only someone made an extremely detailed guide on that very subject. However, even in the late game, you should be trying to go to dying minions and monsters wherever possible in order to get more souls. Bizarre numbers of souls can make enemies almost hopeless at killing you. While it does get noticeably weaker if opponents buy Lord Dominic's regards, you can still often win 1v1s and battles of attrition up close with ADCs who don't always have as much of a range advantage as they used to when fighting Thresh compared to other bruiser top laners. In this clip, I'm able to, first off, corner this Evelynn with this hilarious Caitlyn cupcake wall, and then when Ashe walks up, I take the liberty of spamming laugh before taking the kill on them, and way before Caitlyn can land the shot. Honestly, you can mess up quite a lot when you're this durable with such DPS, and not even just strictly against physical damage. In this clip, I play it really badly, getting hit under tower way more than I ever wanted due to getting CC'd after Hollow Radiance burns Graggy here. But even so, using the box kiting technique I mentioned in the over-explain of Thresh's R, we're able to kite a bit, face tank, and outstat this Gragas even from such a low health. And, fun fact, this clip was actually of a variation of the build I was trying out using Nash's Tooth, which is lower DPS and tankiness than Terminus would have been. If you want to see more on the AP variant of Thresh Top, let me know in the comments. I'm always down to chef it up. Speaking of, this is a pretty bare bones outline of how you can play Thresh Top. There's always more you can innovate on your own if you put your mind to it, and ways you can adapt it to every game you play. In fact, Thresh's versatility is one of his greatest strengths in this regard, though keep in mind that he is always majority magic damage no matter what you build, pretty much. This build focuses on safety, fitting your team comp as a top lane tanky bruiser guy, and being a solid vessel to harvest souls on, playing like a ranged utility Nasus. The damage amounts aren't quite as violent as Nasus and Kayle, but you'd be wrong to assume Thresh can never dish out high DPS. As I've mentioned in the past, in raw damage, Thresh can match and beat Kayle's on hit with actually achievable numbers of souls. But I have to say, this is entirely forgetting Thresh's lower range, terrible wind-up, and overall worse auto-attacking in every other way. As for how I'd rate our standard AD Thresh Top, it's my build I've played since forever, and while I don't always play it completely seriously, I think my time spent with it can place it quite accurately. Funnily enough, I don't think this build can actually be considered a save it for swift play kind of build because it's actually worse there. Whereas everyone is benefiting from faster gold to get their item spikes, this Thresh build, which focuses on gathering souls over time, has no such soul gathering buff in this game mode. Though, fear not, I may talk about some swift play specific Thresh builds at another time. Unsurprisingly, I've played this build since forever, so it is most definitely normal draft viable. It can play most lane matchups decently enough, though does have particularly painful counterplay against strong early game champions who freeze the lane on you, and is very difficult to play alone against very early proxy, but it can be more than fine once you get past those strugglesome points. Of course, I don't think it's exactly topping the meta, and I feel more than anyone trying to tell me in YouTube comments about the flaws of the playstyle. While you could play this in ranked, and people have done this, you're probably going to be putting in more effort than your peers on simpler, more meta playstyles. I can't therefore call it freelo, even if it has seen experimentation in high ranks. But I could never sully my belief in the build by not calling it ranked viable, and so there it places. Just let it be known, it ain't freelo, you gotta work for it, and even if you do, at the end of the day, it's top lane. We both know you don't influence the game. Special thanks to the members, War Squid, Ultimate Ground, Cryo's Dad, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mr. Noodle, Bass1378, Gilbert Morals, Tierman Carantville, Luxius, Dario Castro, Entity 9, Overseer, Enluca, Colorado Cosmico, Hollowed, Lunar Arc, King of the Crossroads, Cposh, K-Rock22, Torjiro, Bobsel Studios, Tenya Scrim, Donata de Brincat, El Pedro Kotal, and Victor. Thank you all so much for sticking with the channel. Hope you're looking forward to early access to more videos like this one. Thank you again.